Is there advice, both small and big, that you have for somebody like me?
The advice is to keep doing what feels right to you and do what you're doing. Obviously, it's resonating with people if you're getting that big of an audience. And I've listened to your podcast. You're very good at it. So just keep doing it the way you're doing it. Don't let anybody else get involved.
What about you've connected? I think you met Jamie at the Comedy Store.
I met him at the Ice House.
At the Ice House?
Ice House. Well, I think I met him at the Comedy Store, but then we talked at the Ice House.
I mean, what?
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah. Did you think deeply about, because like, you basically have nobody on your team. And so it almost feels like a marriage. Were you selective about like somebody to bring into your little circle?
Well, Jamie's exceptional.
He is. He's a special. I mean, he might have grown. I don't remember how he was in the early days. Maybe you could say, but he's
definitely better at it. But right away, he's exceptional. He's got very little ego.
Yes.
He's not a guy who needs a lot of attention. He's not a guy who overestimates anything, like in terms of like negative or positive. Like his interpretation of whether it's good things that happen to the show or bad things that happen to the show, he just takes it all like flat. He's chill. He's just cool as fuck, and he's so smart, and he's so good as an audio engineer and as a podcast producer. He's the best.
But he's basically one of the only people on this whole team. So
yeah,
how do you find? I mean, when you let people in, I mean, I'm sure other people wanted to get involved. Like, why don't you have a co-host? Like, you basically kind of well.
Here's the problem with the co-host. Like when you and I are talking, when we're talking, I'm tuned into you. And I'm waiting to hear what you're saying, and I'm listening, and I'm interpreting it, and then I'm calculating whether or not I have anything to say, whether to let you keep talking, whether I maybe have a question that lets you expand further, or whether I have a disagreement, or like there's a dance that's going on. Now, when there's another person there chiming in too, it fucks the dance up. It's like dancing, like if you're doing a dance with someone, like if you're slow dancing with someone and then a third person's there stepping on their feet, sometimes it's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes having a third person is fun. Comedy podcast, sometimes it's fun.
Debate,
fight companions.
kind of structured.
Yeah, debate structures. But even then it gets difficult because people talk over each other. And also I find that without headphones, it's way easier to talk over each other. You make mistakes.
Yeah.
You don't hear it the same way. When you have headphones, I hear what you hear. It's all one sound, and the audience hears exactly, I hear exactly what the audience hears. Whether it's over here, my voice is louder than yours because you're over there, and if I don't have headphones on, it's not all together.
On that point, one of the interesting things about your show is you don't almost never have done, and you just generally don't do remote, like, not remote calls, but you don't go to another person's location. Like,
I've only done a small handful.
And just like, the Sapolsky, he should do this. But I actually, we went back and forth on email. I told him he needs to get his ass back in this studio. He's working on a book.
I was a fan of his a long time ago because I became obsessed with toxoplasmosis. And I've reached out to him a long time ago before he was willing to do it. But then I caught him in downtown LA. He was there for something else, and I just greedily snatched up an hour of his time.
Well, he doesn't get, I think, some of those folks don't get how much magic can happen in this podcast studio, like bigger than anything they've ever done in terms of their work. I'm not talking about reach, but in terms of the discovery of new ideas. There's something magical about conversation. Like that, like somebody as brilliant as him, if he gives himself over to the conversation for multiple hours at a time, that's another place where you've been an inspiration, where I'm getting more and more confidence of telling people like an Elon Musk that a lot of CEOs are like, well, he has 30 minutes on his schedule. I'm like, no, 3 hours. So, and then they're like, so some say no, and then they come back. There's people have started coming back to like, okay, we're starting to get it. They start to get it. And you're a rare beacon of hope in that sense, that there's some value in long form. They think that nobody wants to listen for more than 30 minutes. They think like I have nothing to say. But the reality is, if you just give yourself over to like the 3 hours, just let it go, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, there's so much to discover about what you didn't even know you think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you have to be confident that you could do it. And in the beginning, I just did it because that's what I wanted to do, and no one was listening. So I've always been a curious person. So I've always been interested in listening to how people think about things, and how and talking to people about their mindset, and just and expanding on my own ideas, and just talking shit. And so we would have these podcasts, and they would go on forever. And my my friend Ari, I never let him never let this die down. Never let him forget this. He was always like, "You have to edit your podcast. I'm telling you right now, you're fucking up." I go, "Why?" He's like, "Because people are not going to listen to it." I go, "They don't have to."
yeah.
I go, "You listen to part of it." He goes, "Just do it. Just, I'm telling you, trust me. Cut it down to like 45 minutes. That's all you need." And I'm like, No, I don't think you're right. I go, I like listening to long form things. No one has that kind of time. I go, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing it this way. So
So
no,
stick to your gut.
No, he doesn't.
He
Listen to
doesn't.
his are like 2.5 hours long now.
That's great. You won. But you wouldn't, like, say, I mentioned to you this before, and this is going to happen. It's actually made a lot of progress towards it. I'm going to talk to Putin, but you wouldn't travel to Putin if you want to talk to you?
Putin's a dangerous character.
He's not. He's not.
You ever seen the thing with Jerry Kraft where they stole his Super Bowl ring?
Yeah. I think that was a little bit of
dangerous person.
misunderstanding.
Oh, really? I think it's a little bit. He just decided he's going to steal that Super Bowl ring.
Kind of. I think it was
Kind of.
He thought.
Can I see your ring? He shows him his ring, and then he puts it on and says, "I can murder somebody with this ring." And then he walks off with it.
It's possible he did it he's a big believer in displays of power.
Yeah.
So like it's possible he did that, but I think he sees himself as like a tool with which to demonstrate that Russia still belongs on the stage of the big players, and so a lot of the actions are selected through that lens. But in terms of a human being, outside of any of the evils that he may or may not have done, he is a really thoughtful, intelligent, fun human being. Like the wit and the depth from the JRE perspective is really interesting. I'm like his manager now, selling he's a judo
trying
guy.
to get Trump. He's really good at judo. I have seen him practice judo. He's a legit black belt.
And not only that, he loves it, not just skill wise, but to talk about it, to reason about it, to think about it, to MMA as well. So you know, it'd be a good conversation. But you wouldn't travel to him. Well, that's hold to your principles. So that's the core of the advice. Just hold to whatever.
I would rather. Here's the thing. There's not a person that I have to have on the show.
Right.
And I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm just as happy to talk to you as I am to talk to Trump, as I am to probably more happy to talk to you, as I am to talk to Mike Tyson, as I am to talk to Joey Diaz. I like talking to people. I enjoy doing podcasts. I enjoy talking to a variety of people, and I schedule them based on, I try not to get too many right-wing people in a row or too many progressive people in a row. I don't want to get repetitive. I try not to get too many fighters in a row. I try to balance it out. Not too many comedians. Comedians are the one group where I can have 3, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, because that's my tribe. You know, those are my people. It's easy. We can talk about anything. It's a weird dance, you know. The conversations that you're doing on a podcast are they're a strange dance, and you want to not step on your own feet, and you want to make sure that you do the podcast in a way that's entertaining for people. And conversations are learning how to talk to people. It's a weird skill.
Yeah. It's
a weird skill that took a long time for me to get good at. And I didn't know it was a skill until I started doing it. And then I just thought you're just talking. Like, I know how to talk. We'll just talk to people. And then along the way, I realized and then when you talk to people that are bad at it, you realize that it's a skill. Like particularly one of the things about my people, about comedians, is a lot of them tend to want to talk but don't want to listen.
Right. Yeah.
So they're waiting for you to stop talking so they can talk, but they're not necessarily thinking about what you're saying, and they're just waiting for their opportunity, or they talk over you, and I try real hard not to do that, and sometimes I fail, but when I'm at my best, I'm dancing.
Yeah, ultimately the skill conversation is just really listening.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, and listening and thinking.
Listening and thinking.